Can we grab my slides on the screen? Are we good? We should be on my computer now. How are you? You all right? Oh my gosh, look at all these smiling faces, desperate to find out about the future of AI. Gosh, no pressure. Listen, I'm a big believer the world's probably going to change more over the next 2 or 3 years than it has over the last 20. It's a really big statement to say that. And I have the privilege of working for a very, very big company that has a lot of time that we spend with enterprise companies trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems. But I spend my time on the Watson marketing side of the business, where often people are just trying to connect with customers faster, right? We're trying to build faster relationships. I was with Facebook the other day, and they talked about how we've now got to create these thumb-stopping moments. It's a nice phrase, isn't it? Thumb-stopping moments. We've got to tell stories in swipes, 5-second attention spans. And I was thinking about, like, not just how I can talk about where we are today, but where the industry is going to go, and how could I possibly add value to you guys in a way that you don't go back to your offices tomorrow and just forget about everything that we said. Because you're going to forget 60% of what we said on stage, just because your heads are going to explode with all the stuff, especially when you see Naveen and what he's going to tell you when he comes up next. He's the visionary that's going to knock your socks off, I promise you. So what I want to try and do is tell you 3 stories. I'm also going to try and do something that we've never done before. We launched a couple of weeks ago the world's first AI-powered marketing assistant. No one else has it in the world. It's only been tested by 2 companies. It's never been shown in public in Europe, ever. It's an AI-powered marketing assistant. I talk to my computer. He builds a campaign. I spoke to one of the biggest agencies in the world, and they said, if it works and Watson behaves himself, what you just did in 12 minutes would normally take us 30 days to do. And this is technology that's live, that's available today, that nobody knows about. We've only just launched it. So I'm going to attempt, if it's okay, to try and show you a live demo of exactly how that works. I've only got 4 or 5 slides. But let me tell you why I wanted to have this type of conversation with you. It's really easy just to try and, make money and save money. Peter Drucker, big management consultant years ago, he said, business only has 2 functions, marketing and innovation. So, well, what does that mean? I mean, a lot of the time I speak to CMOs and they say, we only want to do 2 things. We want to make money, we want to save money. Okay, that's generally what a lot of marketing boils down to, but I think there's another bit that comes after it that we forget. It's the responsibility that we have with the data that we've got. We're on the front lines trying to make this stuff happen. We see the crises before anybody else. We see the drop in brand value before anyone else. We see when companies are falling to bits. We should also see the opportunities. And what we don't do enough of is try and create more meaningful relationships. How do you genuinely make a difference? And I don't mean that to be flippant, and I don't mean that to be really cheesy. Let me tell you a little story. I was in the boardroom of a very big fitness company, one of the biggest fitness companies in the world. You may figure out who it is by the end of this short story. The new CMO came in and he had a vision and he wanted to try and do all these different dramatic things. He wanted to provide some sort of significant value to the company and he wanted to make money and save money like everyone else. And they all went out, they did their jobs and they came back to report. I was in the room with all the team when they smashed their targets, all the KPIs, they smashed them to bits. It was incredible, I'm not kidding. Everyone was beside themselves with excitement because this is going to be canned gold lions, this is going to be pencils and Webbies and all the awards that they were going to put forward. They made $10 million on this campaign with a really small budget, and they also showed these huge operational cost savings from putting new technology in. And what happened? Everybody stood up one by one, they went around the room, and then they delivered the big number. We've made $10 million. And the chief exec was like, yeah. Great. So what? Like, no, we made $10 million with this small budget. We're all marketing rock stars. We don't understand. He said, I didn't just come here to make more money. I didn't come here just to build more loyal relationships. Of course, we all know that it's 7 times cheaper to keep a customer than get a new one. But I came here to do something different and to create value and add some sort of meaning to the people that I work with. And in the back of the room, there was a junior, the most junior person in the room, the guy that shouldn't have said anything. He walks to the front of the room, and everybody's like, oh my God, because he shouldn't have said anything, and his boss is like, you're about to get yourself sacked, you're in front of the leadership of this big company. He goes to the whiteboard, and he draws on the whiteboard $10 million. And he just looks back at everybody, and nods, and smiles, scribbles it down, writes 9 next to it. Everyone's like, oh my goodness, where's this going? And he says, if we still made $9 million, we would still be rock stars, we'd still win the awards, we'd still do all these amazing things, we would still have marketing books written about this campaign with this new type of technology that we've just been using. But what if we put 1 million of that into a project somewhere that was actually going to make a real difference? What if, for example, we did a fitness program, health and well-being for teenage girls in West Africa? What if we did that? Everyone's looking around the room, can we do that? This was the most junior marketing exec in the room, trying to say we should basically donate $1 million to charity from the marketing money that we've made, and they did it. It's incredible. I've got goosebumps thinking about it now. You think about how we make more profitable relationships and more loyal relationships, but the fact that we usually stop when we've made the money and won the awards, but we don't often go into, yeah, but then what? My video got 20 million views. So what? Who gives a shit? Where did they go afterwards? What did they do? What meaning did we add? How did we change something in some kind of meaningful way? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because what that executive said at the end of that session, when he was blown away by the most junior guy in the room that saw stuff that nobody else could see, he said, the goal in business is not to sell to people who need what you have, it's to work with people who believe what you believe. It's one of my favorite quotes in the world. And I've thought about it ever since. It's completely changed the way that I look at marketing and the responsibility that we've got to go and do ridiculous things. Now, I've been in the industry a long time. I've worked for some of the biggest vendors. I know the marketing cloud space incredibly well. I joined IBM about a year ago. You know, the only reason I joined IBM was nothing to do with marketing. It's because IBM helped to save the lives of my children. Kid you not, we're the biggest industrial research house in the world. We're about 1,000 research scientists. We register more patents than anybody else in the world. It's about 8,000 patents a year. About 3,000 of those are in cloud and security and data privacy and protection. But we invent a lot of ridiculous stuff, and we're trying to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. Naveen's going to talk to you about that next. But what happened was, I'm in hospital with my twins. I'm going to try and not get too emotional. The team said we should make this personal. I'm having a conversation. This is my little girl, Matilda. She shouldn't have survived. The doctor said there was no way that she was supposed to survive. There was 0% chance for Matilda, who was born at 1 kilo, 2 pounds, like tiny, tiny baby, just sat in my hand. And her sister, Petra, was 40% chance of survival, so neither of them were supposed to make it. And I'm speaking to the data scientists in the hospital, and I'm trying to detach myself emotionally from what's going on, right? Because as you can understand, this is pretty tricky. This is my beautiful little girls that shouldn't be here. And I'm describing, well, what's happening with all the wires? Where's all that going? Where's all that data that you get in? Why is it that, first of all, my girls were born and they survived, but why is it that you got it so horribly wrong? Why did the data show that they weren't going to make it? And they clearly did. And they started to describe this, well, all the TPN and the prostin and the different drugs are coming to get this single view of a patient. We're trying to take the heart rate records. We're trying to take all the diagnoses and everything from the GP and all the metrics that was about 10,000 a second coming off this bed. And they described single view of a patient. And then they said, we're working on a project with IBM to figure out how within 24 hours we predict exactly what diagnoses so that we save the lives of premature babies like this. The way that I talk about single view of a customer within a marketing cloud, it's exactly the same thing. All we're doing is plugging in different data. It's exactly the same technology. We're plugging in CRM, connected data, social data, everything that's coming from all the 500 million different networks, blogs, and forums. We try and put all that together to get a single view of a customer to figure out what to do next. We're going to talk about AI in a minute. But I just want to suggest that maybe AI isn't artificial intelligence. Maybe AI is augmented intelligence. Maybe the idea of an AI is nothing more complicated than having the world's best assistant next to you all the time to help you to do your job better. Certainly saved the lives of my little girl. And this was marketing technology. It was the same thing, essentially just with a different data set. This was the first time that we put them together. Isn't that beautiful? And this is them today. Oh. Thank you. You talk about building more meaningful relationships, and you're probably thinking, what on earth has this got to do with AI and marketing? Where are you going, Jeremy? You talk about trying to build more meaningful relationships. Everything is based on emotion. All the things that we do are all based on emotion. For a long time, we've made decisions with our hearts, and we've justified them with our heads. So when I think that I'm sat in front of boardrooms and I'm sat with people like this CMO that's trying to figure out, I don't just want to make more money, save more money, I want to make a difference with all the stuff that I'm doing, he's making emotional decisions. Now, I'm sure you've all been there. You've all had the data-driven discussion. You've got your business model, your metrics. You go to your boss or your CFO, your CEO with the business case for this is the thing we should do. This is why we should buy this technology. This is why we should buy this company, whatever it is. And the data says exactly what it's supposed to do. All the data's in one place. The technology works. What does he do? It doesn't quite feel right. I don't know. The data's saying this, but I think we should do this. My gut tells me to do this. There was a huge research paper by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they measured 33,000 executives. You know what they found out? 4 out of every 5 executives are overwhelmed and underprepared for the challenges their business is going to face over the next 5 years. They're terrified. Went on to say 75% of executives make emotional decisions about the future strategic direction of their company. They all make decisions with their hearts, and our customers are no different. We know that we make decisions, yet we go out with the data all the time. Now, I want to try and show you a couple of things. When we think about how much data there is in the world and we need to make sense of it, there's a reason that it's so scary. There's a reason that people are overwhelmed. We've got the elections in the UK today. Companies at the moment, we've done some research at IBM. We've been looking at companies who feel like they knew who their customers were. They felt like the tech was in place. They've got the single view. They've got the org structure in place. And you know what's happened? The big shift that we've seen within the last 12 months is that 66% of companies are now saying we no longer have any clue where our customers have gone whatsoever. We've got no idea. These are companies that used to know, but now because people lie and you can't understand the context behind the data and the technology can't work fast enough, people are making wrong decisions. There's not really an excuse for that, but it's easy to see why you would be so overwhelmed. Think about it. All the data in the world, 90% of all the data in the world is created in the last 12 months. 80% of all of that is unstructured, which is from PDFs, from the social web, networks, blogs and forums, voice. 80% of it unstructured. This is 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every single day. That's equivalent to a company the size of Google is being built every 24 hours now. And we've just got more and more noise that we've got to try and make sense of. It's insane. In fact, someone told me the other day, it's now equivalent to 320 libraries per person, the amount of data that's in the world. It's growing at the rate of Moore's law. It's about 66% year on year. So it's doubling in size about every 18 months. So when I speak to executives about this stuff, and this is why I want to show you a couple of these demos in just a second, we're speaking to people that feel like everything's in one place and are actually doing okay. You know, we're seeing digital transformation projects from our side have only got a 15% success rate. That's only 2% more successful than a casino. Think about this. We tried to do some math on a board. We was chatting to this executive, and he's like, look, Jeremy, we get it. We love all your stuff. You know, it's probably going to do great things. Show me Watson. It's like, yeah, great. But 9 times out of 10, we know exactly where our customers are. We know where our customers are gone all the time. Really? 9 times out of 10? So we drew on the board, like, well, let's look at the lifetime value of your customers, of where they've gone and what they're going to do next. You know where they are, you know how many devices, how many interactions. He said, yes, 9 times out of 10. Fantastic. So we've got 5 different channels. Google tells us at the moment that customers cross 5 different channels or devices when they're making basic purchasing decisions. 5 channels. They also check those devices 5 times throughout the course of their lifetime with a company. That's what's consistent with this guy. And he said they've got 3 devices. They've got a desktop or a laptop, smartphone, and a tablet. Now, if you just do the math, 5 times 5 times 3, that's 75. He's right 90% of the time. So you just go on your iPhone, if you just do the math for that, 0.9, 90% to the power of 75, that's 0.04% success rate. That's the success rate that he's got of understanding where his customers have gone all the time, even when he's right 9 out of 10 times. You know what that's the same as? I Googled it just to see what the probability was. It's the same as getting injured when you're on the toilet. And he thinks that everything was in one place and it was all working. So what I thought, just to try and visualize this for today, I thought it might be really interesting just if we looked at what you guys thought. So what I've done, when you say that people make emotional decisions, I thought it would be interesting just to see what the audience was saying today. Now, what we've done here is we've fed in every single conversation on the WebTomorrow hashtag into Watson. So Watson's our big AI, our augmented intelligence, our cognitive system. Cognitive just means that it's a system that learns to think like a person. And what we've been able to do is visualize all of this data based upon everything that you guys are saying on Facebook, on Twitter, obviously everything that's public, Instagram, comments, blogs, 500 million different networks, blogs, and forums. Now, what's interesting about this is that you're all saying, yeah, Jeremy, that's nothing sexy. We've seen this 1,000 times. And you may have done with the stuff around the outside, because that's based upon what people click on. But what about the piece in the middle? What about this? What about what mood people are in? How trusted is this audience? How much do you love the content? How scared are you? What's the emotional range? How intellectually challenged do you think you are? Now, what we're seeing at the moment with a lot of the big brands that we're working with is that they're saying cognitive is the new CRM. And what they mean by that is we don't need to focus as much on personalization anymore because that's easy. If you give me 4,000 things about a customer, of course I'm going to be able to do the next best thing. That's really easy. But what about all these people that don't want to give data anymore? In 2017, 55% of consumers say they no longer want to give any data to marketers ever. So if you've got no data, how on earth are you supposed to do the right message to the right person at the right time with any degree of accuracy? Gartner calls this personification. If you don't know it, I encourage you to Google it. They say it's one of the biggest trends that's going to shift over the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to mature within 5. Personification is the opposite of personalization. Personification is how do you give the right message to the right person at the right time when you don't have their data? This is the way that marketing's shifting. Why is this important? Because what we're seeing now is certainly within B2C brands, and we've seen this a lot in B2B as well, people make emotional decisions, and the more emotional that content is, the higher the likelihood of it being shared in a private messaging app. We talk about dark social, right? Dark social, 9 times out of 10. That conversation is now in Snapchat, WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, Facebook Messenger. It's a line that's been copy and pasted into an email, all the stuff that we can't see. So what these big banks are saying is that they're looking at, well, the CRM is great, and if we know all these things, but actually what's more important is to understand the mood of our audience to within the last 10 minutes. That's much more important. So we could actually look at this. I'm going to try and do this just to see if this works, because if this is what the audience is saying, what is WebTomorrow saying, and what are the emotional triggers? If I'm a marketer that wants to try and make money and save money to do meaningful things, I need to understand what those emotions are. So let me just show you how Watson works. Now, hopefully this will work. What we're going to do, and hopefully I'm not going to get into trouble, we're going to feed the entire Twitter account of WebTomorrow into Watson, and he's going to do a personality insight on them to see what is the mood and what are the emotional triggers and attributes of every piece of content WebTomorrow has ever said. Now, by using natural language processing, tone analyzer, and we're using different types of sentiment analysis that I'll show you in a second, we can start having a look. We can take the sample size, and we can analyze it. Here we go. What do we think? You are skeptical. You enjoy a fast-paced, busy schedule. You're trusting of others. You believe in the best and trust people easily. You're adventurous. You're eager to experience new things, and your choices are driven by a desire for prestige. You are relatively unconcerned with tradition, which is awesome, right? You care more about making your own path and following what others have done. This is just the snapshot of what WebTomorrow looks like with all the content. This is how the audience sees it. Now, we can dig into that even more. We can look at the starburst graphs, and we can see what are the emotional values. This could trigger an email campaign. This could trigger pre-roll on YouTube. It could be content. It could be a certain type of video because we know what the emotional triggers are. And what we'd be able to do is we'd be able to look down these charts, and we'd be able to see what the emotional components were of all of this content put together. Now, what we were looking for essentially is anything high 90s or low single figures. So we can see 91% adventurous, but emotionality is really low. So how could we try and create more emotional content when we know that marketers make decisions with their hearts, but we've got high levels of adventurous, but the emotional range is actually quite low? What about trust? Trust is 94%. 94% trusted, WebTomorrow. That's insane. Anything in the 90s is ridiculous. The content's obviously fantastic. You guys trust it. But love is 28%. So we need a bigger emotional range. Now, if we compare that, let's see if we can go back to what the audience thinks. How trusted were we? We'll probably see a gap. 62% trusted from what you guys. Is that because we're challenging you from the stage? Is that because of privacy? Is that because of your heads are being blown off by all of these changes? What does that mean? Understanding levels of trust is one of the most important things in the world. Let me tell you why. In 2017, Edelman, the big PR company, did a survey of the biggest companies in the world. They went and surveyed 33,000 people, and they asked them what did they believe and who do they trust. And this was governments, banks, executives, business. I looked at the business section. If you go and look at the countries that are the most trusted, then you look at the countries that are the least trusted places to do business, 7 out of 10 are now in Europe. And we've got Belgium, France, Germany, UK is right at the top of that list. Least trusted places to do business. No one trusts anybody. And yet, that's our job to try and create more of this trusted content. So when we see that nobody actually wants to go and share any data anymore, how do you get around that? Well, let me give you an example. I'm going to do this super quick because I want to show you Watson and I want to show you the demo and how this fits together. This is the North Face's website. The North Face, they're familiar, first of all, that the apps were just too expensive to develop, so they canceled their app strategy. They said that 1 out of 5 major retailers are going to be able to do that by the end of 2019 anyway. So what we should do is build a really badass mobile responsive site, but what if we powered it by an AI instead? So it could understand the emotions and what people meant, just in the same way that when you go in a store, right? You speak to the assistant and you say, I'm going to go to Everest Base Camp, and it's like, oh, that's really cool, I was there last year. You should do this, go at this time of the year, and you have a real conversation. That's not usually how e-commerce works. We have the check boxes and we click and we go through everything. It's a little bit painful. But what if you could have a conversation with a website? So I use text, but what you'll see here is Watson's APIs behind the scenes are going to try and have that type of conversation without asking for any data, because we know 55% of consumers don't want to give any data to marketers anymore. So where are you going? Okay, I'm going to go to Mount Everest. I'm going to go to Everest Base Camp. Hopefully he works. Come on, Watson, don't be shy. When are you going? Say I'm going to go next winter. I'll find a jacket. This is for a man, because obviously he doesn't know, because this is all anonymous. This is personification. This is trying to give the right message to the right person at the right time. We're pulling in APIs from the weather company that IBM owns. We've got the biggest IoT project in the world, 2.5 billion data points. And we run 5 different weather models on them every 10 minutes to try and understand what the weather's going to do and how that affects behavior. We can match that with those emotions. What we can also do is tag the 100,000 images that North Face has got automatically so that we know how to map it to emotions or the certain types of language that we use, and it makes recommendations. Now, actually, what it could do is using Tone Analyzer, could understand the mood that we're in, and the customer journey might actually get really long. It might ask loads of questions. Do you want zips? Do you want reflective patterns? Do you like yellow? Do you want to use it for, do you want active fit? Do you want slim fit? And the customer journey gets longer or shorter based upon how happy you are. Now, why is that important? Because if we've got to create more value than we capture, and it's not just about data, we've got to try and do experiences like this before we ask people for their email address. Because nobody wants to give email, mobile, device ID, IP address. Nobody wants to give their date of birth and their personal information anymore. So what might that look like if you had an AI to try and help you out? Now, what we're seeing is that the majority of customer journeys are still email-based. So once this has happened, and you've had a beautiful experience with North Face, hopefully, you then try and give your email address, and then maybe you'll sign up for a newsletter. And that newsletter might be, you've got to make sure that within that newsletter, all the content is perfectly relevant to everything that you're doing. It's got exactly the right images. There's no spam, because obviously we want to respect people's attention. Now, there's a couple of phrases that I've not mentioned here. I'm going to look at Watson just in 1 second. Because we talk about dark data. 80% of the world's data is unstructured. We talk about dark social, dark conversations. 90% of consumer conversations are now invisible. Marketers can't see them anymore. So we've got to think differently about the way we interact. We talk about dark MarTech. We'll look at that in a second. This idea of trying to plug together technologies to create your own marketing clouds. I was talking to a scientist about this the other day. I don't know if any of you guys know Cedric Vianney. He won the Fields Medal in 2010. One of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he invented a theorem, and we were talking about all of this, about why executives are overwhelmed and underprepared making emotional decisions. And we were talking about how everything's dark. We've got dark data and the dark web and dark social and dark MarTech. He said, you know what's wrong with you marketers, Jeremy? I'm like, no, Cedric, but you're about to tell me. He says, you're a blind man in a dark room searching for a black cat that isn't there. What does that even mean? we're trying to make sense of all this stuff. It's moving so fast. Case studies don't even exist yet. You're a blind man in a dark room searching for black cat. He's like, you guys have got no idea. You don't know where your customers are going to go next. Nobody wants to give you their data. People lie. They behave differently. You've got to try and understand different things. So this is why we've built this assistant. And I'm going to try and give you some context for this in a second. What the idea of this is what would happen if you had the world's most powerful marketing assistant sat next to you all the time? An assistant that could measure about 10 million records a second, every campaign that you've ever done, ever. Like I said before, when I showed this to an agency, they said, what you've done, and hopefully we're going to do this in the next 14 minutes, what you've just done would normally take an agency 30 days. Because what might happen is we might have a campaign and it might not quite be working properly, but we just don't know why. We have a gut feeling, but there's no data to back it up. But because somebody's trusted us, and they've given us their email address, and they've given us some kind of open interaction to do something beautiful with them, we need to make sure that we don't waste any money, and we certainly don't spam them over time, and we can't afford to wait days or weeks before we try and fix whatever these campaigns are. So let's have a look at this and see what it looks like. So this is within the campaign automation part of our Watson marketing platform. This is where you would run your email campaigns from. Now, I'm going to talk about AI in marketing. I've purposely taken the simplest product that we've got with a very simple AI just to do one thing, which is going to try and check your emails. There's nothing I'm about to show you that is fake. This is all live. It's available today. It's about 18 months ahead of anything that anyone else in the marketing industry has got. It's available to you guys. Obviously, we'd like you to buy some stuff from us. But I just want to show you what it looks like, because this is going to be the future of the way that we interact. By the end of 2019, 30% of all browsing behavior is going to happen without a screen. It's all going to happen with voice. Google is telling us already that 20% of all searches on an Android device are all done by voice, and they're about 10 words long, which is why it's so important to have voice recognition. So what you're going to start seeing, if you look at the bottom corner, you can see my friend Watson, the little purple circle. And whenever you see that, that means you can interact with a cognitive assistant. This is freaking awesome. You know when Arthur C. Clarke says any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic? I'm not trying to set this up too much, am I? This is what it looks like. Hello, Watson.
Hello. Would you like to learn more about Campaigns LeakFit 3 launch?
So what's happened? Let me just kind of step back. I'm going to just tell you what's happening just one stage at a time. Normally this would be completely seamless. You talk to it like a person. You can come onto our stand later and have a look at this stuff. We've got Pepper on our stand as well. And we're trying to make these interfaces as seamless as possible. Now, instead of trying to say, okay, I need to go and do the thing within the email for the LeakFit launch to go and do something else, Watson already understands the context of exactly where I am. So whatever it is that I'm hovering on, and I selected the campaign that we're running here, he's saying, like, how can I help you? How can I help you within this campaign? So, of course. So, hello, Watson. Yes, how does this drop compare to all campaigns in the past year?
I do not know what drop means.
I used to work at Adobe, and there was a lot of words campaign bounded around. You know, when Neil Lane was bought, it became Adobe Campaign. I started to use different language. I started to call email campaigns based upon drops. Some people might say it's a slightly different word. If you've got a machine learning technology, you've kind of got to understand that on day one, it's the worst it's ever going to be. Because it's machine learning, we've got to train it. It's like an assistant. But what this is the world's smartest, fastest assistant. But we need to train him to learn the language and my dodgy Manchester accent and and we've got to understand what all those nuances are. So you would have a completely different version of Watson when you're speaking to him. Your team might use different language. You might have groups that are set up that would be slightly different languages. So first of all, I just need to tell him that drop is the same as campaign.
Okay. Got it.
So how does this drop compare to all campaigns over the past year?
This campaign is ranked 238 out of 250 campaigns over the past year.
Wow. So what we've just seen is Watson look at 250 campaigns. This is live data. 250 campaigns is about 252,000 records in each one. This is 62 million records. Watson's using the processing power that he's got to try and understand all the problems, and he's seen that our gut feeling is right. It's not performing very well. It's 238 out of 250, but what does that mean? In 2017, there's 525 different marketing metrics we could measure. 525. Mostly just ROI and Net Promoter Score, right? Customer satisfaction, but hundreds and hundreds of metrics. So how on earth has Watson ranked this, and where did he get these numbers from? Well, just if we had an assistant, we'd be like, why? Where did you rank it like that? Is that true? What metrics did you use to calculate this?
Here are the metrics used.
So, and look how quick that is. That's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, come on, that's sick. The fact that we can do that this quick. Now, there's two things that have gone on here. First of all, this is a view that any marketer would be used to having. We would be able to see kind of what we've got within our click rates and our open rates, but there's something that just happened that you guys will have missed. When we talk about a cognitive assistant, something that's going to understand and reason and learn and interact, for something to be truly cognitive, it has to do all of those things. It has to think and act like a person. This is why we call it augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. This isn't sci-fi stuff of machine learning that's going to build itself and take over the world and destroy us all. This is an assistant to help us try and do our jobs better. And what's happened is when I said, what metrics did you use to calculate this? This is the key word. Because again, normally, any of you guys know natural language processing, how computers work, you would have to explain exactly what this is, but Watson's been able to understand the exact context of what I meant, just in the same way that you guys would if we were just having a normal conversation. Now, what we've seen with the rates there is that our click rate is 7.2%, the average is 4%, okay? So we're performing pretty well, but something's gone horribly wrong with this because our average open rate, 5%, and this is 0.5%. Why is that a problem? We're clearly upsetting some people. People take half a second to read a subject line. They take about 1.5 seconds to look at a piece of content before they decide if they want to click on it. So we need to understand, first of all, is this a blip? Is this a problem? Is this a crisis? You know, should we be sending triggers to somebody's Apple Watch, or should we be sending the executive just to say, this is a problem, we need to do something about it right now? Or is it just something that's going to fix itself? Well, again, we can just go and ask Watson, how is this trending? How is this trending?
The performance rank of this campaign is trending down.
Okay, so we know it's not going to fix itself, so we need to do something about it, but now this is where it gets really complicated and pretty hard because we don't know what to do about it, but we've got a gut feeling that, like we saw with the emotions before, there's not a high enough degree of accuracy with the emotions that we've put in our subject lines. We make decisions with our hearts, justify them with our heads. We need emotional subject lines to try and get people's attention. They trusted us with their email address, so we need to make sure that we've got something that's going to resonate with the audience that we've got. So let's have a look. What is the subject line for this campaign?
The subject line is, don't let your health skip a beat. Get sleek for 3.
Which is a pretty poor subject line. So I'm not surprised that nobody's clicked on it. So we need to try and have a look at then, what about the campaigns that we've done in the past with the 62 million records we've got? Is there any kind of really high-performing emotional subject lines that we've used in the past? I understand this is really, really basic stuff. We could have shown some ridiculous AIs about where the world's going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. I thought this is more practical. We can do this today. This is the simplest thing in the world. So let's go and have a look. And what is the sentiment of the subject line for this campaign?
This subject line has a negative sentiment score.
So at minus 60%, so we know that that's bad. We know that the level of emotion is so low and the negative sentiment is so high. And what we're also able to do, by the way, you know, as we're having these conversations, we've got our information space here. We can see the conversations that we've had and we can see how all of this has been mapped out. We can go and dissect our sentences. Every single conversation you or your team has ever had with Watson is going to live within this, and you can go back and train him. You could even go back and look when you actually made the wrong decision. You go back and you figure out the decision tree and you go and traverse that to try and understand, well, what was it that we did? Did we make this decision right? Did we get it wrong? You see here underneath every one of these settings, we've got the thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, Watson, you made a good decision, and over time we're going to train him to get even better. Now we've seen that we've got a negative sentiment score here, so we need to do something about it. So this is the bit where I get worried, because this is where we have to check all 60 million records. Take the emails for the past year with the highest open rate and analyze the subject line sentiment.
Here are the sentiment scores for the top 3 mailings with the highest open rates and the bottom 3 mailings with the lowest open rates.
I'm not exaggerating, friends, when I say this is the first time this has ever been shown in public in Europe. It's the first time that we've ever shown it. This is awesome. What we've seen, we've got all the best subject lines there, and then we've seen every single one, and we can see the levels of sentiment, and we can also see the worst. We can go and have a look down and we can see there, don't let your health skip a beat, get Sleek Fit 3. What are the best ones? So now we can just start to shape exactly what that campaign is and change the language. Now over time, Watson could even recommend what the subject line is going to be anyway. But in this case, we're just using it as a very, very basic use case, just manually like we're talking to our assistant. So, Watson, what is the sentiment of the future is amazing with Sleek Fit 3?
The sentiment for this is positive.
Amazing. So 80.5% positive, dramatic swing from the minus 60, right? Okay, let's see if we can take this one stage further. Modify this campaign subject line to the future is amazing with Sleek Fit 3.
The campaign subject line has been modified. Would you like to see this mailing template?
Now, this is where we'd go, that was freaking awesome, we've just fixed a problem, we understand what's going to happen, we've done it in real time in seconds, now I'm going to go back and give it to my developers and give it to my agency and team to go and build out the campaign, solve my problem, we're all rock stars. Well, I don't need to do that, do I? Because we've got the world's most powerful marketing assistant, so why don't we just ask him to do it? Yeah. Look at that. This is a subject line. We've taken the image that's been tagged with up to 500 attributes to understand exactly what the right image is for that person on that email. We've changed our subject line to the future is amazing with Sleek Fit 3. We've got the colors and the model that's mapped to the CRM. It's ridiculous, isn't it? This is the most stupid thing I've ever seen. Isn't that amazing? This is going to change the way that marketing works. When you talk about making money and saving money, if you can do that in 15 minutes, think what else you could do with it. Think about how much money you could save and then the power of what you would be able to do with that money. Could you be the guy that's in the Coke or the Nike room, when he's trying to figure out we saved all these millions of pounds. What do we do with it? Let's go and do a project for clean water. Let's go and do something for teenage girls in Ethiopia. Marketers forget that we've got a responsibility. What we stand for is far more important than what we sell. Goal in business is not to sell to people who need what you have. It's to work with people who believe what you believe. So as we look through the minefield, it's 5,136 different vendors we could be buying from today. This is the graphic from 3 weeks ago. It's insane. We've got to make sense of all of this stuff, and we're trying to piece it all together to try and solve some of these problems. And we're looking in the wrong places. We need a trusted platform. Now, of course, I'm from IBM, so I'm obscenely biased. We've got a very good, trusted, stable platform. But this explains why the marketing industry is in such a mess. You go outside in the expo hall, right? Look around all the stands. Everybody's using exactly the same words. They're all trying to solve the same problems, but often they just stop at, well, we'll create the ROI, we'll try and do the thing, and we'll try and make some money, and we all go home happy. If you guys want to play with this yourself, it's completely open. This is one of the things that I love the most about IBM. We just give people tools to play with. This is a responsibility that you guys have got to go and do something meaningful, but have some fun with it. Just go on ibm.com/Watson. You can look at all the APIs that we've just been playing with, personality insights, tone analyzer, how we can look at everything from facial recognition right through to natural language processing. You can take that, you can give it to your developers, you can go and mess with it. We build this within messaging apps, chatbots like North Face has done. You go and drop it on your website. Go and do something ridiculous, right? Go and play with it and go and have some fun. But the thing that we can't forget, technology is amazing. And I can't believe that works. That's flipping awesome. But technology is nothing. What's important is that we have faith in people, that they're good and they're smart. And hopefully, if you give them the right tools, like Watson, they'll do something wonderful with them. So thank you for your time, friends. I wish you well. I hope you make huge amounts of money. But more importantly, I hope you make a difference. Thank you very much.